Hello everyone, today in this tutorial we're going to be going over how to stabilize animated props. This is a question I get asked quite often when it comes to asset editor and specifically animated props, and it's just a really cool thing to know how to do, and it can really make your mods come to life. So what do I mean about stabilizing animated props? Let's go ahead and open up a model here. So in this case, we're going to use a sky lantern and we're going to animate it. So we'll animate it. And as you can see, there is quite a bit going on here. So of course, the lantern itself bobs up and down and sways left and right. We have the wings here, which flap in the wind. And we also have these tassels here, which are dangling at the bottom and just also kind of swaying with the wind and the movement of the lantern itself. So there's a lot of different animations going on, and there's a lot of really cool animations here. And let's say you have a mod and you want to take one of these animations and apply it to your own model. So let's just say you broke everything down and you just wanted the wing, for example, here. I'm not going to make it really look very nice, but you just wanted this wing, right? And you apply that to your model. But if you applied it just as a normal animated prop and you animated it, it's going to have that sway still. And it's going to look detached from your model, and you don't want that. You want it to look as good as possible and look like it's actually attached to the model itself. So let's go ahead and stop that animation and let's bring everything back. Alright, so that's what I mean about stabilizing an animated prop, is we take a part of a skeleton, in this case, we detach it from the root of whatever model it was originally attached to and isolate it so we can keep that nice animation, but it's also stabilized. And how do we do that? Well, the tool that we're going to be using is the animation transfer tool. And before I show you what that is all about, I want to show you the model that I'm going to be working on, which is this really cool model made by another modder. And I really like it. I think it looks really cool. It kind of reminds me of something from Japanese folklore or maybe Hayao Miyazaki. And if we animate it, it still looks really cool. But as you can see, these little dangling bits here are static, and he would like those animated just to give it some more life and some more character. And as you can see, these dangling bits are actually a part of the sky lantern here. So our goal in this tutorial is to stabilize these two elements here and then apply them to our model here. And we'll go ahead and get started. So the first thing that I like to do is break down the model completely. But before I do that, I want to show you why. So if we jumped into the animation transfer tool, we didn't break down the model. We bring in our target, which is the model that we're going to be applying our changes to. So, and I'll explain what the target, source, and what that is all about. But let's go ahead and bring in our model here. Oops, wrong one. War machines, aircraft. There we go. Alright, so as you can see, I brought in the target and I brought in two models. Now why did it do that? Well, the best way that I can describe this as this model here on the right is the model that we're going to be applying our changes to and editing in a sense. This model on the left is just the reference model, so we can see what changes are taking place. So reference, target model that we're going to be applying changes to, and then we're going to bring in the source. And since we're just stabilizing a prop in this case, we're going to use the same model, and boom, as you can see. Alright, so the source is the model that we're going to be taking animations from, or in this case doing that, but also editing the skeleton. So it's what we're taking things from is the source. The target is where the changes are being applied to, and then this is just the reference model on the far left. And as you can see, if you do not break down the model to the elements that you just want to stabilize, it can get kind of difficult to see. It's very convoluted, and as you can see, there's clipping just because the sky lantern is naturally a very large model itself. So let's go ahead and actually close out of this. I'm going to reopen it just to reset it. And let's break down our model just to the elements that we want. So let's go ahead and select this. And we're just going to select everything we don't need. All right, just like that. And I actually only want this middle tassel and then this left one, so we can get rid of this one. And we're going to expand selection, delete, and then do the same thing for another layer. And just like that. I will miss some stuff up there. It's okay, we'll grab it. And then like that. Perfect. And then let's go ahead and clean up the rest of this. Just get rid of that. Perfect. And what I like to do just to make sure I got everything and there's no floating bits that are difficult to see is I turn off the skeleton and just kind of look around. And then I also select the model. And if the selection square is pretty uniformed to your selection, then I think you're pretty good to go. All right, so we did what we wanted to do, but we're not quite done. So what I like to do when it comes to animated props is to separate each element and create an own animated prop for each one rather than trying to do two in one. Doing this, I believe you just have more customization, more control over where you want to put things and so on, and that's always a good thing when it comes to modding. So what we're going to do is just make a duplicate of this right side. So duplicate it, sorry. Select the next layer and do the same thing. I think I selected the right layer. No, we don't want that. So let's go ahead and deselect that. All right, then duplicate again, and let's hide this real quick. I did the same layer, so that was my fault. So let's bring this back. And I want this part. So I'm going to duplicate this, expand just to make sure I have everything selected, and duplicate. There we go. So now everything's complete, and we'll go ahead and hide our duplicate there. And we'll bring in back everything, and we'll actually delete this side so we can separate the two models. Just like that. And perfect. And now I'm going to save this one. And you don't have to do this, and I'll show you why later, but I just do it. I don't know why I do it, to be honest. I just do it to maybe keep track of where things are. Or if I want to go back and maybe make a change. I'm not sure. But we'll go ahead and save this. So save as, that's fine. Save only visible nodes, that's what we want. And let's go into our TAC file here. And I'm just going to call this Griffin underscore prop 01. We'll call it vanilla prop, because we're not actually going to apply this prop. I just kind of want it ready to go, and then we'll do the same thing here. Generate LODs, file save as, close, yes, and we will go ahead and just select our custom name like that, and then just 2. Alright, so those are vanilla props, and they're ready to go. And we can actually close out of that, and we can check them. So we got our first prop, which is that left tassel there, and then we got our second prop, which should be that middle one. Perfect. Alright, let's go ahead and close that, and now we can bring in our animation transfer tool. So what we want to do is bring in that first prop that we created, just like that. Perfect. And as you can see, it brought in the target on the right, and then the reference on the left. But we also need to bring in the source, which will be the same model. Just like that. So now we have our source, and then we also need to choose the fragment, specifically the fragment of the model that we're working with. So in this case, it's the sky lantern. We'll do that for the source as well. And then the slot is the animation that you really want to extract from. So in this case, I just want the stand idle, and we'll do that, stand, and we'll animate it. And it looks good. And as you can see, the target is not animated because no changes have taken place yet, but we can see the reference and then the model source that we're taking animations from, or in this case, reducing the skeleton. And that's already looking really nice. All right. Next, we need to figure out what elements we want to break down. So in order to do that, what I like to do is I like to hide the source. I like to hide the mesh of the target. And I like to kind of go back over here and actually, I like to go back over here and I select this drop down menu and I figure out the bones that I want to work with. So in this case, if you can see, it's kind of hard to understand, but of course this is the Sky Lantern skeleton, and each bone is represented by one of these cubes here. And within this drop down list, if we select a selection here, such as animation root, we can see that the root bone is highlighted. So that's how you figure out what bones you want to work with. And I already know that I kind of want to work with this left side tassel bone and this center one here. So we'll go ahead and start breaking it down. And let's go ahead and do that. So we'll go down the list, and you can do it by name, but sometimes the names are a little bit difficult. So we got Lantern Tassel 0. So I think we actually want that one for the center. So Lantern Tassel 0, 1, and 2. So we'll commit that to memory. You can write it down. And let's see. Well, no, we don't want the left, so we want right. All right. So the 4 or 6 bones in this case that I'm going to be extracting is the Lantern Tassel 0, 1, and 2. Lantern Tassel right 0, 1, and 2. Perfect. So I've committed that to memory. I know what I want to do. And now we can bring back our mesh and our source. And we can collapse this menu here. And we'll start talking about these settings here. Now, these settings are somewhat self-explanatory. So we have the skeleton scale. So of course, 1.2 would be 20% larger. 0.8 would be 20% smaller. The animation speed multiplier works the same way. So 1.2 would be, 20% faster. 0.5 would be 50% slower. Now the important things when we're doing this is, since we're going to be removing the skeleton to stabilize it, we need to make sure that this checkbox here is checked. 0 unmapped bones. And I'll explain what that does later. Next, actually I'll talk about this up here as well. So the offset, you can just change the orientation. I normally don't do that here. I do that in Super View when I'm applying the animated prop, but I've never used them. You possibly could. So that's just an option there. Down here, the saving prefix is just how your save is going to look. So it's going to be prefix underscore Sky Lantern stand or something like that in that case. Here, since I'm actually going to change the skeleton scale, since if we look at my reference model here, I can see that these are fairly small compared to the original model itself. And if we bring in our original model, which is a good reason why to have these kind of handy, is we can compare it. So if we bring in the original unchanged model, we can just make it editable. We can go ahead and bring it up, and as you can see, it is quite large just because the Sky Lantern's just massive. So we need to scale this down. And a good trick that I like to do is just select everything, go to the scale gizmo, and I'll scale it. So maybe like 0.4 across the board, and we'll see what that looks like, and then we can compare it. So 0.4, and then apply. We'll bring it up, and let's see what that looks like. All right, so maybe actually even smaller than 0.4. So I'm going to Control Z just to bring it back, and we'll do the same thing. So maybe 0.35 sounds pretty good. And all right, that looks much better already. So I think that's about right. So 0.35 is kind of the scale that I want to go with, and that's how I figure out how I want to scale things if I'm helping someone or kind of want to test what it will look like on my own model and that sort of thing. So I think I'm going to go with 0.35. I think that looks pretty damn good. And I'm just going to delete that since I don't need it anymore. And we'll go back to the animation transfer tool. And now I know how big I want to make the skeleton. So it's going to be, 0.35, 0.35. And I want to select this box since I'm changing the skeleton. And don't click it now, but at the end I'll export mesh skeleton at scale. And it just creates its own little mesh like this at scale, which is really nice, and it saves time and it makes the animation look more clean. But we're not done here. So next, we need to open up the bone mapping window. So we'll go ahead and open this. And this is where we're going to map our bones. So on the left is the model that we're going to be our target model. The right is the source. That's how I kind of keep track of things. And as you can see, we have all of the bones within the skeleton, and none of them are rooted. That's what this -1 here represents. So if I wanted to root something, I would find the skeleton that I want and then click on the right panel here. But since I already know what we want and we don't need any other bones, we know that I need Lantern Tassel 0 is one of them. So what I like to do is kind of center my left panel, and then I kind of go down on this right side and then kind of line them up and then just go, okay, so Lantern Tassel 0, perfect. And as you can see, it is mapped, and then we'll do that for 1, 1, perfect, 2, and 2, perfect. And then I know that I don't need left side for the tassel, but I do need the right, so I'll go ahead and do the same thing. Kind of bring this down. All right, so Lantern Tassel right 0, perfect. And just like that, mapping my bones. So before, when I said to make sure to have 0 unmapped bones checked, all what that does is it doesn't delete the bones, but it hides them in a sense and turns them off. So I guess think of it something akin to binary, where 0 is on, 1 is on, sort of thing. So we're just turning those bones and that part of the skeleton off to stabilize it. And it's really wonderful rather than deleting the bones, because if you ever wanted to go back and make a change, or maybe you forgot to map something, of course that bone will still exist within the skeleton structure and you can go back and edit it. So that's why it's better to do it that way. And of course Ole is amazing once again. So we'll go ahead and do that. So we did our maps, and I'll go over these down here. So you can delete things. So if I want to delete this map, I can do that. If I wanted to delete like a root almost, like if things are connected, I can use delete self and children. You can auto map based on name. So that would just auto map based on name, and it would auto map everything accordingly, since I'm using the same skeleton. Now it's not really that useful in this case, but if you are trying to, for example, port over the High Elf Phalanx formation to dwarfs, it would be a really handy tool to do some of the grunt work. So you would automap based on name and it would do its best, but you would still need to do some manual work, but it would get a lot of it done, like maybe the legs, for example, and the arms and the head, for example. So it's a really useful tool, but of course you would still need to do some manual editing. And then auto map based on hierarchy, I have not used that, and I have not used copy to all children. I just assume that if it's on hierarchy, it's judging by like lantern tassel and then maybe that group and everything within that subgroup and just mapping that way. I'm not sure, but the only ones I've ever used is auto map based on name, delete self and children. But we don't need to do that for this case here. For stabilizing, we've already mapped our bones, and all you do is hit OK, and then an error is going to pop up, and you can go, yes, I am confident in myself. All right, and we're not done yet, so we go to batch process now. And what this is the animation fragments within the Sky Lantern and the Sky Junk, and since they use the same skeleton, you can actually keep the Sky Junk animations. They're slightly different than the Sky Lantern. I'm just going to keep them all, but in this case you could kind of tailor your own animations to what you would like to keep. I'm just going to keep it like this. I'm going to hit OK, and it should generate a little skeleton. And depending on the amount of fragments within your skeleton, because some of them do become very complicated and have several, that batch process can take a long time. So if you think that asset editor has crashed, don't worry, it's just a very long process. All right, next I'm going to select Apply Settings, just like that. And that should apply the skeleton scale. And I'm also going to save the animation. And that's just going to save the fly stand animation. So I'll go ahead and save that. And I'm going to save my pack file. So I'm going to save. And let's animate it. Alright, so as you can see, the original has that sway. It's moving up, down, left, and right. And if we apply that to a model, it just wouldn't look good. But as you can see with our changes here, it has stabilized that animation. It has separated this part of the skeleton and bones from the overall skeleton, but it's kept a really nice animation what we wanted, and it's stable. So if we apply it to something, it's going to look really good and perfect. So now we can export mesh at skeleton scale. And I'm going to drop it into this folder here just to stay organized. And I'm going to rename it to stay organized for this modder here. So we've got this prop 1. I'm going to remove the vanilla underscore. And I'm going to remove this SO35. Just like that. And OK. And we're going to save. Alright. So now if we open this, it should have the animation here. And it doesn't. Alright, so let's go ahead and go back. Save animation. Maybe I need to save the animation afterwards. So I'll save again. Save. And let's reopen the prop. Let's close it and then reopen it. There we go. Okay, so you do have to save the animation afterwards. But that's perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. All right. Now what we could do, I believe, is actually, I don't know if this will work, but it's a learning process. Let's go ahead and bring in, no, we're going to have to do it the old school way. But a lot of the grunt work is done, so that's really nice. So now we can go back to our animation transfer tool, and I'll do the same for the other model. In most cases, you only have one model, but in this case, I do have two. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring in our second model here, which is this one. And rather than under source here, rather than going through the browse and then all the drop-down menus, you can actually use this little handy thing here, use target as source. Are you sure? Yes, and then it'll use the target as a source. So you don't have to, it'll save some clicks that way. And we will apply settings. And we will export mesh skeleton at scale. Perfect. Just like that. And I'm going to drag and drop, and I'm going to rename this one to be aligned with the other one that I created. Just like that. And we'll save. And let's actually see if the animation works. It does. Perfect. All right. So now you've stabilized your animated props and they are ready to go. Perfect. All right. So that's how you stabilize animated props. The tutorial for that section is over. I'm just going to apply it to as an animated prop and go through that process just like my other video. So if you want to stop here, you can. But I'm going to go ahead and just start doing that now. So I'm actually going to go to the original model, and I'm going to delete that element there and this element because we're going to apply these as animated props, and we no longer need those elements anymore. And then we can auto-generate, save, just resave our model, save here, and we'll go into Super View, and we'll go into Browse, And we'll go ahead and bring in our cool model here. Just like that. And I think it's Griffin. Stand. All right, perfect. Believe that's correct. And now all we have to do is create our animated prop. So we'll go ahead and go to New, Prop 14, and bring in our first prop here. So I'm actually going to go ahead and delete these original ones here just so I can stay organized. I'm making sure I'm bringing in the right models, just like that. And I'm going to copy full path. And that's going to be under model name. Perfect. And I'm actually going to go into my prop here and animate it. Bring in our animation here. Control C. And go back to Super View. Control V. And then, let's see here. Attach method, it's going to be 2 for animated. And we're going to not override any props. And if we save it, it should bring it in. And if we animate it, perfect. All right, so it's in there now. And now we just got to get it into position. And this is always the hard part, for me at least. It just takes a while. I do large increments here, so you have position, which is in a vector of X, Y, and Z, and then you have orientation, which is in a 360-degree arc, so it's kind of difficult to visualize. So not an arc, but a sphere, sorry. We'll go ahead and get it into position first. So let's go ahead and see what this does. 1. And sometimes you have to reanimate it. So that moved it over. That's actually good. And then maybe 2. Let's see if that's height. That is height. Perfect. And we'll bring it up even a little bit more. I kind of want to get it on that little like horn or antler. Sorry, not horn. So we'll go ahead and do 3. Okay, we're getting closer. And now we want to attach it to the bone. So once again, we'll go down to our drop-down menu and we'll figure out what we want to attach that to. And I'm assuming that it's going to be part of the head. So we'll do tail, feather, wing, shoulder, neck, head, 33. And let's hide the mesh here. Yeah, so it's going to be head. And the head bone, as we can see, is 33. So we'll actually attach that to bone ID 33. And we'll save it. And it should start to move with the model itself. And reanimate it. And it might have shifted it somewhere. Oh man, okay, there it is. So yeah, that shifted it a lot actually. Alright, so maybe we'll do -3 then. Maybe it's flipped it. It did. Okay, so 2. Alright, so maybe -1 then. Alright, and then maybe 1.3. Let's see which direction this moves for our X plane. Actually, I think I moved forward rather than, so maybe this input field is now flipped. Yep, okay. So we'll actually make this 0 then, and then we'll make this 0.7. And I'm just going to be talking to myself from this point on, so if you want to speed up, it's getting close. So maybe -0.3. Bring it back a little bit. Nice. Yep, perfect. And then maybe 0.27 rather than a full-on 3, and we'll bring it up by 1.2. Or I guess just 0.2. Alright, and that's getting in a pretty good spot. Now we need to orient it, so it looks like we need to rotate it by 90 degrees. And we'll try this one here. Okay, nope, that's backwards, so minus 90. Alright, that looks really good. Maybe even rotate it by like 20 degrees on its flat side. Can I do that? Yep, perfect. I like it. Maybe even more, maybe like 45. Perfect, because I kind of want to get that like opening to line up with the antler there. And we need to bring it up maybe by 0.3. Let's see what that does. A little bit too much, so maybe 0.4. Bring it back down. Alright, maybe 4.2, and then we want to bring it over by like 0.2 as well. Oh man, okay, that's perfect. That's looking really good. I think it looks really good. Now what we can actually do is clean up this bottom part here. So let's go into our prop. So this is prop 1. We'll stop the animation and let's actually kind of shorten this because it's clipping through the wing. So kind of bring it up just like that. We'll make sure we have selected everything, and then now kind of bring it in, make it nice and just like that. I like that. And then we will go ahead and do that, and we'll resave it. And let's actually go ahead and back to our super view and let's refresh. Okay, that's a little bit better. Could put it up there. I do kind of like it like that. Actually, let's actually not rotate it here. Let's make this 0. Because I like having the coins facing towards the, just this direction. It just looks nice, I think. And what we'll do is actually rotate that in the model itself. So we'll go back into our model. And what if we actually just duplicate, delete, and then now we can just focus on this. What if we rotated it like that? And then what if we brought this up just a little bit? Just like that. So maybe like the yarn is like in there. And then let's animate it, make sure it looks okay. I think that looks good. Okay. Now let's save it. And go back to super view and refresh it, maybe. Yeah. It does look better, but now we need to move it over again. So by 0.4 then, and then we need to bring it back by 0.8, 0.1. Oops, I mean 0.5. I want the opposite direction, I think. Oh no, maybe I was right. So maybe 3. 3. Let me just do a drastic change here just to see which way this is going, because I don't see too many changes taking place. Okay, so it is this one, so maybe 4. And then we'll bring it back over by reducing that. Oh, okay, I think that looks pretty good. And we can always fix that clipping, and I'll ask them, of course. But at least we got the first one in. And now what's really nice is that since we got this one oriented, and it's pretty much mirrored. You know what? Actually, I have an idea. What if we made the antlers bigger? You know, and that's like one of my favorite parts of modding. It's just a lot of problem solving and just coming up with new ideas to make things look nice. And we'll do the same for this side. So let's go ahead and just grab that, bring it on up. That maybe, does that look good? Maybe, okay. Oh. Okay, I like that, I like that. Let's actually save the model. And with the model, you do have to bring it back in by going to mesh, just like this. And bring back the mesh. So now it's a little bit taller, so now maybe we can get it to clear a little bit better. Can't tell if this left side's like shorter. Now the perfectionist is coming out, but I'm just gonna get it in there and then of course consult, and we'll see what they want, because this is their model and I don't want to make too many changes. So let's go ahead and bring this up. So maybe 4 or 5. Maybe 5, just all. 5, 3. Yeah, just like that. All right. And then we just need to shift it over to the right. I think this is the correct. Nope, maybe 4. All right, and that's pretty good. And then we can go back into the model and actually shift it over just a little bit. Make sure we're getting both, like that. And let's see what that looks like. Maybe even more. Perfect. I think I like that. That looks good. All right, now we can do the next one. So we'll just go ahead and do the same thing. So new, animated prop. And we'll keep everything. Oh, actually, no, let's not new it. Let's delete that. Let's actually just copy this. So copy, paste, and then bring in our second model here. Just like this. You'll save it. We'll animate it. And then now we can just shift it over. So we'll go ahead and shift it on over. So to shift it, it would be positive value, negative value here. So -1. Dang, that's actually pretty close. All right, and then now, I think in the original model he didn't have that like handle thing, so we'll get rid of that. So let's actually open up this model. We'll go ahead and get rid of this and save some clipping. We will rotate. I mean, you actually need to make a copy of this so I can rotate it. Just expand, delete. Now I can just select these elements and rotate it like that. Maybe too much. I think that's pretty good. It's fine. Refresh. Perfect. And then now we can lower it. So just by a tad. And that should be 3.7 maybe. Can't remember if this is lowering it. Maybe 3. Just want to see what that does. I think it's actually pushing it. So 4, 5, and then how about this? 0. Okay, that's better. And then 3. And let's just try that. All right, and then we'll rotate it just a little bit more. Oops, gotta get both elements like that. And refresh. I think that's pretty good. I think that's pretty good for the tutorial. So now his props are animated and it looks really cool and just gives that, that little extra life to your model, and it really goes a long way. So I hope this helped you guys. And as always, if you have questions, I always try my best to answer them. I've just been extremely busy with work and school and life, but I will always try. And if I can't figure something out, I'll just let you know. But yeah, so have a great day, guys, and see you next time.